Welcome to another episode of Moonshot. In this episode, we're going to be answering questions from you. And by the way, this is something we're going to be doing more and more of. So if you're listening to this and you missed out on asking me a question, don't worry. Go ahead and leave your questions in this episode, and we're going to go ahead and create yet another one to answer your questions. So I'm going to be sitting here with Mandy and our executive producer, and she's going to be asking me the questions that actually came from you.
Yeah, Naveen, so I am so impressed. There's tons of wonderful questions from your amazing audience. And I'm going to start with an Instagram handle, Plant Powered Success. They say, "Hi, I love your work. It's inspiring to say the least. We are launching a magazine for plant-powered entrepreneurs, and I was wondering if you are vegan or plant-based. Thanks for your time and best wishes."
The answer is I am vegan and I am plant-based, but doesn't mean it's really healthy because, to some extent, the plants have viruses. And when you eat the plant-based food, you're going to get a lot of these viruses at times. And that may actually be upsetting your stomach or your gut microbes, right? To some extent, being vegan is good, but being vegan doesn't mean it's actually going to be healthy for you.
Okay. So there's a way to be an unhealthy vegan as well as to be a healthy vegan.
That is correct.
So there's no magic bullet to diet.
Unfortunately, the magic bullet is the diet that's good for you is the magic bullet for you.
Okay. And I know what you're talking about with the plant viruses because my dad happens to eat a lot of cherries and he got his Viome results back and they said, you have a cherry virus.
Yeah.
So I know what you're talking about. So it's about what's best for you. This is an interesting question. I am Xena99. What are your nicknames? I call you Rainmaker Jane.
Wow. I actually just want to be known as a village boy.
Village Boy. Is that like your new rapper name?
Well,
Village Boy Jane.
No, my point really is to some extent, I always remember where I come from. And that never changes. That keeps me grounded who I am. And, it doesn't matter what you achieve in life. You always have to remember where you came from because that keeps you always, what I would say, real in life.
Okay. Hi, Naveen. When do you think people will finally understand your idea of illness as an optional thing? This is from a person whose name I cannot pronounce. So.
Well, the interesting thing is, illness has always been optional. A lot of the times people say being healthy is a choice. If being healthy is a choice, don't you think being sick is a choice? And to me, when I say making illness optional, I don't mean to tell people that if you are sick, somehow it is your fault. Mm-hmm. But what I really mean to say is that most people don't know what is healthy for them and what is unhealthy for them. So they actually end up not they believe they're eating healthy. So they eat spinach, they eat kale.
They don't have the information and knowledge in order to take control of their health.
And even if they have the knowledge and the information, and once they have that and they decide not to follow it, that's what I mean by it's actually a choice.
Okay. So it's really about empowering people and creating a world where it is a choice. We're creating that world.
That's right. That means we empower people to take control of their own health, become the CEO of their own health, know what is right for them, know what is wrong for them. And if they don't follow it, that's a choice they made to be sick.
Yes. Okay. I love that. And I don't think that most people would choose to be sick. So I think this is an awesome thing.
It's interesting thing is people do choose every day that options that are not good for them. For example, it says clearly on cigarettes.
Yep.
Smoking cigarettes is bad for your health. And people open that pack, read it, and smoke.
Yeah.
Now, that's a choice they make every day. So yes, people do make unhealthy choices knowing it's bad for them.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
I think to some extent that people feel not what I would say immediate impact of their decisions, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, anybody who has had a young child knows that if the actions and the consequences are too far apart, they can't link them together, right? Uh-huh. So when you say, smoking is bad, they smoke and they feel nothing, they say, I feel good, then how can it be bad for me?
This is a lot like a frog, will be boiled alive in water and not even know it because it just doesn't know the temperature changes, the little temperature changes. It's very much like smoking.
That is really what happens. So I think if you can show them instead of having the rushes inside their body that happens when they are smoking, if they were happening outside their body, they would be freaking out. And to me, really, to some extent, imagine if we can create a technology that every time they make a bad choice, we show them inside out of what just happened inside their body. And maybe that feedback loop will stop them.
Yeah. Seeing is believing, as they say.
Sometime, actually.
Okay, so I have Swappy_happy, which is a real Instagram handle, that says, hi, what's the best strategy to raise money for a biotech startup which aims to create abundance of natural resource without any near ROI?
Well, so to some extent, raising money is always necessary, but the only time you can raise money, and tremendous amount of it is to show people what problem you're trying to solve. Is that problem worth solving? The team that you have assembled is actually capable of solving that problem, and you can show them that from path A to B, how do you get there?
Okay.
You have to be able to show that this is a big enough problem, audacious enough problem, and you have been able to assemble an amazing team that is capable of solving that problem. And the third thing is, do you have a plan to go from here to there? And then everything else falls in place.
Yeah, it sounds like what you're saying is that a lot of startups type of things that try and tackle a giant problem are just too disorganized and not clear enough with their message about this is how we get from point A to B.
Yeah, and also, it has to be, part of it is always about telling a story about why it matters to you and why it matters to the world. Because sometimes it matters to you a lot and no one else cares about it. But if you can find a problem that is big enough that billions of people say, I wish somebody can solve that, and then it is personal to you that you want to solve it, that is really the sweet spot, in my opinion.
Okay, cool. And because a lot of people will say, oh, it's very difficult to get funding. It's very difficult to get to these people who have the ability to help me. What would you say to that? Is that just an excuse? That
is generally an excuse, because money finds you when you have the good ideas. In fact, as they say, the capital is never patriotic, and capital actually flows wherever the opportunities are. If you can show the opportunity, the money will come to you. You never have to go to the money, right? That means people will find you when you are doing something that is big enough for someone else to be part of it. That means they want to be part of your solution if that solution is going to change the way people live their lives.
Right. Everybody wants to be involved in something big.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mick Siver says, I'm having 3 projects on which I feel all have a lot of potential. How do I make a decision which one to focus on? They are all making similar amount of revenue. Thanks.
Yeah. So the thing is, it's not about the revenue. It is about you. When you wake up in the morning, what is it that you think about? And don't tell me you're passionate about all 3, because you have to be obsessed about one thing. And if you're not obsessed about any of these 3 things, go find the 4th thing. So never focus on revenue. Focus on what drives you. What are you willing to die for? What are you obsessed about when you go to sleep? What is that when you jump out of the bed, when you wake up in the morning and you're still obsessed about it? And that's the thing you should actually be working on.
I'm thinking of something, because obviously we hear a lot of times, there are people that'll say you have to follow your passion, or you have to find your passion. And I think there's a lot of people out there who might say, well, my passion is playing video games, or my passion is knitting. And maybe they're really passionate about that, but they can't make a lot of money with it, or that doesn't lead to a fulfilled life if you're still struggling to pay the bills all the time. Yeah. So what would you say to those people? Do they need to just try more things, or?
So first of all, passion is for losers. Obsession is for winners, right?
Okay.
So passion is a hobby. Obsession is what you do to dedicate your life to.
Okay.
So to me, it's not about just making money. Making money is the byproduct. It's a byproduct of doing things that matter. So the question you have to be asking yourself is, what if what you're doing is actually successful? Would it actually change the lives of 1 billion people somewhere around the world? Would it help millions of people live a better life? If the answer is no, you're working on too small a problem. You're not working on your moonshots.
And are you saying, because that makes a lot of sense to me, and now I understand why you're so full of energy all the time, is because it's really going to take a ton of power to get to this place. And as you were saying in the other episode, I think it was episode 1, about how the world that is possible several steps from the problems that you're solving is what motivates you. Like the exponential technologies that you're talking about in this future, I don't even know if I'm going to live to see those. Doing anything to make that possible, anything that we can do to make that possible is so worth it and is so inspiring and is enough motivation to get you there.
But interesting, Mandy, is first of all, you'll get to live to see it. And the reason is because in the next 10 years, it is going to be a fundamental shift on who we are as humans and what we're going to be doing. So to me, we all believe that you and I will not only get to see it, we'll get to experience it. And I wouldn't be surprised the people who are listening to it actually will be creating it. So
wow.
Not only will be living in that world, we'll be creating that world together.
Yes. You're such an optimist, Naveen. I love that. And it's infectious. I mean, it makes everybody believe that anything is possible, which it truly is. Okay. So I don't know how to pronounce this person's name either, but this is from an Instagram follower. Hello, Mr. Jain. I'm a 21-year-old entrepreneur in university and am incredibly passionate about one day revolutionizing our outdated and flawed education system. I would love to ask you what you think the future of education looks like and discuss why it's so ineffective right now on your podcast. We need to close the knowledge and mindset gap between the people with the best upbringing and the worst. I get very excited whenever I hear you say you want to solve education next and would love to talk about this with a mentor like yourself. I just got my Biome kit in the mail recently and so excited to send it in. That's an extra.
Well, so first of all, on the episode 1, we did discuss a little bit about education system. And actually, there is a great article that I wrote on what is the future of education system. So it's on Forbes. And if you just type my name, Naveen Jain, education, Forbes, there are 2 articles. One is why education is ripe for disruption. And the second set of article really is about how to create the 21st century education system. And the idea really is that it's not that our education system is somehow broken. It was designed for the time for when skills were needed. And it's really designed to teach you skills. And in the new world of exponential technologies, what really matters is not the skills, but about learning to learn, learning to solve problems. And obviously, the things that will need to be done would be somehow breaking away from this physical infrastructure that we call education today, that you have to go to a particular place to learn. In the education system of tomorrow, you'll be able to learn where you are, whether it's using the virtual reality, whether it's using your smartphone. The answers are everywhere. And our job in the education system will become about how do we ask the right questions, not how do we come up with the right answers. And that's totally backward today. In our education system, everything we focus on is to say, how do you come up with the right answer? Here are the 4 possible answers. Pick the right one. And if you think there are 2 right answers, you're wrong. There's only one right answer. And in real life, we all know there are many right answers to the same problem, solving that problem. So when it comes to solving a problem, there are many ways of doing that. And we're not taught that way, right? In fact, we take away the creativity during this whole process because we're constantly telling everyone, focus on answers, focus on one right answer, as opposed to imagine what are the possible ways. And what if even the question is wrong question? What would you ask the different question?
What it sounds like is that, and what I'm thinking from my own experience, is that we're kind of indoctrinated to all have the same perspective, more than just answers, but perspective on something. So we can only look at it from this angle so that we come up and formulate that answer that they're looking for.
But that is exactly what it is. And secondly, that is exactly what was needed.
And then we get the dopamine hit when they say, oh, yeah, that's right. And we get all A's. But really what we're doing is something that a computer could do.
And the worst, so that was the right system in the industrial era where you needed these plug and play people who all thought the same way,
the assembly
did the
line.
same job,
Yep.
and it didn't matter whether they were Paul or Teresa, right? It didn't matter. They just needed people who just thought the same way. They were replaceable. They were just the plug and play modules for them.
Right.
In this world of tomorrow, where it matters for you to be creative, and that creativity requires for you to think differently and not have the same perspective.
I love that. So we have one more question. What is there still some, and this comes from Helen, is there still someone out there who you would love to meet? Because as obviously Naveen Jain, you get to meet most of the people who you would be interested in meeting and who you're curious to meet and who you think are the thought leaders. I mean, we see you with Richard Branson. We see you with all of the big guys. Is there somebody that you're still interested in meeting that you think, wow, I'd just love to sit down for coffee with them or tea?
Well, it's interesting thing is really not. And here is why. I mean, this whole idea of meeting people is simply egotistic, right? The point is there is no one out there in this world who actually has been successful, whose thought process is not already documented, whether it's documented through the books, people who written the autobiography about them, or there's plenty of video content about them. So to some extent, I love to learn from everyone who has been successful, because to me, every person who has been successful has found a new ways and a different ways to achieve the same goal. And my learning from them is really what I find very fascinating. To me, it's the curiosity. It constantly drives me forward. So to me, it doesn't really matter. There is no one I would rather like to meet. But there are many, many people who are out there in the world. I just love to read about them.
Yeah.
I love to watch them. I love to see how they think about that. And I think the good thing about the life today is you can find all of that on the internet.
Right. That's very true. It's being virtualized.
Yeah.
You don't have to do in-person stuff anymore, just like you were talking about.
Yeah.
So personally, I have a question. Your Moonshots thinking, the way that you think, which is so unique, and I haven't heard anybody think this way before. I mean, I know we documented it on episode number 1, but in several episodes, I'm sure. But I'm wondering, I mean, being an employee at Microsoft, did you still have that mindset when you attacked problems? Is this just a mindset that you've always had of how to get to the root of a problem and ask the right questions? Or is this something that you developed and maybe, since you've gotten better at it, you've gone bigger and bigger, thinking in bigger and bigger challenges?
The interesting thing is none of us are born with anything. It's something you develop and nurture. So, it's rarely a single time in life then you say, that was the time you actually, did something or that changed everything. I think to me, this is a continuum in life. The people you surround yourself with, people you actually come in contact with, people you're constantly learning from, and every interaction that you have changes your thought process. Whether you like it or not, sometimes it's for better, sometimes it's for worse. But every interaction changes who you are. So make sure your interactions are with the people who are super, super successful, because that changes you. Right? Yeah. So if you hang out with the people who are constantly bringing you down or constantly complaining, sooner or later, you're going to become one of them. Right? So you become an average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. So pick the 5 that actually lifts you up rather than bring you down.
I think the success, this is tricky for people, and that's an excellent answer. But you have a point, you have an opportunity to give some real value, like in this particular area where I think people are misinformed. What is success? Because there's a lot of people who, especially on Instagram, which is where we're getting the questions for this episode, there are a lot of people out there who will say, okay, I'm going to go look for the most successful people, and it's going to be this friend who has a Ferrari, and it's going to be this friend that has the mansion, it's going to be this friend that just hung out with Beyonce or whatever. But the way you talk about success is the size of problems that they're solving and the impact they're having in the world. How do you find that, especially when, people like Richard Branson or Elon Musk or Naveen Jain seem out of reach?
So first of all is that, success is never defined by the amount of money you have in the bank. Success is defined by how many lives you are able to improve. And with that yardstick, you find these successful people that could be like Mother Teresa, or they could be like Bill Gates. They both are very successful. Dalai Lama is very successful, and so is Richard Branson. So the point is, in terms of finding these people, again, it's not about finding these people and you have to meet with them and somehow you have to shake their hands. The learnings from each one of them is very well available to everyone. You want to know about how Richard Branson thinks? He has written 7 books on it, right? You want to be able to read those things. And by the way, every one of them you may think is inaccessible. You find them in various events that they're speaking at. And to me, to be being there where the people are and really learning and listening from them, and hopefully you get a chance to even shake hands with them. But that should never be the goal, to somehow take a picture and show people that you met them. It should be what you learned, and incorporating them in your life is what you really attribute to meeting them.
Right. I love that. That's amazing. So is that why you are, I mean, because I know that your schedule is super busy with events and with speaking, and you spend a lot of your time just giving back through a crazy hectic schedule, traveling all over the world just to kind of share this moonshot thinking and philosophy.
So part of it to me is really about this is way of giving back, and obviously coming from a poverty. And being to some extent where I am today, I feel it is kindness of God that has given me so much. And more than the kindness of God, it is really the society lifted me up when I needed them. Mm-hmm. And it's my way of paying back, because the people who actually helped me don't need my help. Right. And the only way to pay back is to pay forward. There is not a day that goes by I don't get at least several dozen emails from people and asking for something, help, and asking for something. I always reply to those emails because I feel a few words from me can change their life. Mm-hmm. Is that what they think and what they're going to be doing. And it is up to me to disappoint them or to be able to go out and give them just a tiny bit of encouragement that could change their life. And not only just change their life, God knows if they are successful, they will change millions of people's lives.
Right.
And, that is, to some extent, I feel makes me feel good about doing things that I think not only helps an individual, but gives them a power to help millions more.
Right. I love that. And I love that this is going to lead into my next question. You are saying that the way that you give back, and obviously where you're at in your life, that's amazing. And reaching out to people and having these interactions is so meaningful to them. But giving back to people as far as motivation and encouragement and helping them with their mindset and giving them a few tips that you've learned along the way. I know that you have a particular idea and philosophy around philanthropy as well. And it all ties into your Moonshots thinking in my mind and solving big problems. But can you walk us through a little bit how giving back in your sense and in the philanthropy sense is different for you than what somebody else might think?
Yeah. So philanthropy, it's always been about giving money to someone. And I really believe the philanthropy should never be about giving money. Philanthropy should be about solving a problem. Right. That means if you really believe you are a philanthropic person, then find the problem that you care enough and give it what you have the least of, which is your time.
Right.
Right. That means when people say, I'm going to give $5 million and you have $50 billion. Does it even matter?
Right.
What matters is you have 24 hours in a day and you take 5 minutes of your time to help solve the problem that needs solving, that can help a billion people.
Because what got you the $5 million? This.
Yes.
And if you could apply that to something else that's worth more than that.
That's right. So point is, people feel good by giving money and they pat themselves on the back and say, oh, I'm such a nice guy.
Kind of an ego thing,
Kind of an ego thing. But I really believe giving money is mostly about ego.
Yeah.
But when you take the time out of your day and give that time to solve a problem that can help millions of people, that to me is a real philanthropy. Mm-hmm. The reason successful people become successful is because they're good at solving problems. Why not ask for 20% of their time rather than 50% of their money? And that's how you solve the real problem in real life.
Because most of them, if they're really great at solving problems, they're not chasing money anyway. I mean, there comes a point where it's just about how can I do more? And then you get addicted to it. It's like, I just want to keep solving bigger and bigger problems.
Right.
And you're an expert at it. You're great at it. And it's exciting.
And I really hope that everyone out there, when they meet someone in their mind that they are successful, don't ask for money. Ask them about the wisdom. Ask them about the thought process. Ask them to share the things that that you should be doing to be successful. And it's amazing thing is how often people waste the opportunity by asking for money.
Right. What is coming to mind for me, and what I think is so fascinating, and all of this stuff just goes together with your mindset in general, and the Moonshots mindset is that you are trying to create a world where each individual is optimized at their highest level, being fulfilled and creating what they only can create as themselves, learning from other people and learning how to, have their moonshot. And if we can just imagine a world where everybody is, trying their own moonshot, we would all be fulfilled, because we would all be reaching for something higher than our own life.
But here's the best part. Even if 10% of us actually end up achieving our moonshot, that helps the 90% of us.
I agree. But it's only by us all trying
because we don't know which those 10% are.
Exactly. I love that. And that's why I hope that 8 billion people will be listening to this podcast, and we will end up with that 10% that can end up changing the world. Because right now you're doing the heavy lifting. You're trying to lift the weight of the world.
Mandy, I am not the one who's doing the heavy lifting. It is the people who came before me did the heavy lifting for me to be even in this position we are today.
That's very
remember,
true.
Every one of us stands on someone else's shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
The fact, me, an immigrant coming from a poor country, is the fact that I'm sitting here in the United States and someone gave me a chance to be here. That shows the many, many people who came before me, how much they sacrificed. And because of their sacrifice, it became easier for me to be here. Right. Because of their credibility, of their hard work, is why people trusted me to be able to do the job that I was able to do. Right? So to me, I'm always grateful for everyone who came before me and sacrificed so much so that I can have this opportunity to be sitting here and talking to you.
And this podcast is about talking with the people who our listeners can stand on the shoulders of, who can say, okay, you have forged this path, you've put your life into solving this problem so that the listener can stand on their shoulders and solve a greater problem. Is that what you're hoping?
Well, my hope really is that every one of the person who is listening would find encouragement and be inspired to be able to go out and do something that they actually care about.
That's the first thing, isn't it? Is that you can't do something that you don't believe is possible. And so just by showing evidence that these people are doing it and look where they came from, you can do it, that it sparks that moonshot.
Idea is that each one of us has everything we need inside us to make this a possibility. It is our mindset that constantly tells us it is not possible. And once we switch that off and turn the new thinking on, that everything is possible. The only thing that's not possible is what we can't imagine. If you can imagine it, you can do it. The sky is not the limit. The sky is simply a figment of our imagination. And that's the only reason it's a limit.
Right. Exactly. I think that's a good place to wrap it up with that incredible inspiration and the reason for the podcast. And next time we'll have even more questions and we will answer them. So listeners, if you just want to leave some comments or DM Naveen on his Instagram, we will get those questions answered in the next Q&A episode of Moonshots.